What is going on, guys? Back with another video. So I know the market currently feels very, very stressful, very frustrating with just how slow the market is moving, guys, right? If you're a crypto investor, every single day really drags. Every week feels like a month feels like a year. And, it doesn't help the situation when we just see how much impact the Fed, how much impact, Trump, insiders really have on this market. And I think, this has just shown just how early we still are. And, eventually the market is going to tire of all this, flip-flopping in terms of these different meetings with the Fed, speeches. And, we've got Powell here, Jerome Powell, who, he does a lot behind the scenes, right? He has the ability with whatever he says to really impact the market. And you've got him now coming in basically saying that there will be no market bailout despite the volatility in the markets, specifically with the tariff and the trade war. And he basically believes the market economy is strong. He thinks job data is looking healthy, and pretty much ignoring what is going on in the stock market. And you know, this is really confusing for an investor, for someone who really wants to see an end to quantitative tightening, which is ultimately what we do need. And on the flip side, you've got him basically saying, or applauding crypto's mainstream adoption, acknowledging, and again, no one can deny the momentum of adoption of crypto adoption across the world. It's going to continue, and ultimately, this is why you need to just keep your head in this game, and not make any short-term decisions, guys, because I understand, right? When you look at the market as a whole, when you look at people around you, as a small YouTuber, even when it comes to the audience, I can see a lot of people have left. A lot of people have been shaken out, have had enough, and it's understandable, right? Because when you see your portfolio, something which you've worked hard to scrape that money and then invest it, and when you see it get destroyed in the space of a few months, it is very difficult, guys. What I would say is you need to have patience, and again, people throw this around as some sort of quick and easy word that people need to really understand. You just need to have patience, guys, because as I've said, in these markets, specifically the crypto markets, things move very, very quickly. Just in one day, you can see just how much information there is to process. You've got Trump, basically trying to make a trade deal with Japan. And of course, the main aspect of this now is the trade war with China and the US. And a lot of people are saying, the US doesn't need China. Believe me, they do need China, and I think they're going to learn the hard way. You can see China, sort of importing oil, and ultimately, there's just a lot of news to digest every single day. And ultimately, what we've gained from Jerome Powell's sort of meeting today, or interview, whatever you want to call it, is ultimately it does not look hopeful for any rate cuts coming in May. 10% chance of a 25-point decrease, and I would completely ignore a 50-point decrease at this stage. Ultimately, what it means is we've still got more time, right? We've got June, July, and again, for an investor, that is something which you're probably not going to be happy with, right? Because as I've said, every single day is just dragging. I understand that. And what I want to say is, guys, right, when you look at the fear and greed index, we are now close to extreme fear. And every single time we've seen this based on the past, this has always been long term a good opportunity to buy. And the thing is, most people don't buy. 90% of people will just sit back and they'll say the market's finished, the market's dead. Even with the adoption we've got, we still see this. I see this. Everyone basically just getting shaken out. So if you're still here, if you're still watching the videos, you are ahead of the majority of the crowd. And ultimately, when the market shifts around, you're going to be in a better position. So what should you be doing now, guys? As I've said, with this channel, with my channel, I know I take a lot of emphasis on the low caps, mid caps, micro caps, nano caps. Of course, that comes with the risk. We're all aware of the risk, guys. As a low cap investor, I take huge amounts of risk, and ultimately you have to live with that. You have to live with the, sharp rises, sharp decreases. And, if you're coming into the space, if you want something which you, again, I'm not going to say that it's going to be completely bulletproof. You still have to be careful. We've seen just what can happen. Solid, what was deemed as a solid crypto, likes of Mantra, which had such a promising future, just be rugged in the space of a few hours, literally shedding billions and billions of dollars in the space of a few hours. So, if you think that your high caps are, necessarily safe, you really need a wake up call, right? But ultimately, Bitcoin is here to stay. I know Ethereum is having a difficult time. Ethereum is also here to stay, right? So, if you're coming into crypto, if you're happy with, the likes of, a 3x, maybe a push of 5x, you can just come in and, bag Ethereum, right? I know it's a slow mover, but it is going to move, guys, right? And, if you're happy with something which isn't volatile, it's not going to, shed massive amounts, especially at these levels. It could drop small amounts, but ultimately long term, this is going to give you something which is solid, potentially that you could hold for the long term. Then, layer ones, Solana, another solid choice, another, a solid choice for a layer one. Huge TVL, there's huge amounts of hype and adoption with Solana. Then you've got something like Chainlink, another solid Oracle, which can give you some, respectable gains. Again, here we're talking, around a 5x, maybe higher, which if you're someone who doesn't want to take a lot of risk, that is a very good opportunity. AVAX, another layer one. I like to look at this at something similar to Solana. Massive ecosystem, and again, very good levels to accumulate. And again, if you look at the all-time high, you're looking at, around 5x in terms of getting back to all-time high, five to 6x. Again, people are thinking, oh, only a 5x, but this market will humble you guys, and you need to, take profits. You need to be realistic with what you're expecting. Then you can come down the list. You've got Sui, another very strong layer one. HBAR, I think, is a decent pick. Then you can come down, guys. Ultimately, when the market flips, anything you get into, as long as it's solid, as long as they continue to develop with the use case, with developments, you're not going to go wrong, right? Ondo for RWA, I know Mantra has, completely rugged. Is Ondo going to do the same thing? Got high conviction that it's going to stay around, but ultimately you need to be aware of the risks, guys, right? You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Tomorrow another project's going to rug. In a week, 3, 4, 5 projects going to rug. And ultimately, when we get altcoin season, we're going to see a lot of coins, when they peak out, are going to pull the plug as well. You just need to take profits along the way. Ondo, I've got high conviction in it, guys. Ultimately, if it rugs, then this game is something that you need to really, really get in and out of quickly. Near Protocol, another, in my opinion, very solid pick. Kronos, I know I don't really talk about this too much. Another layer one, probably some of the best marketing in the game, in my opinion. Tau, another solid AI project. Huge ecosystem, and I think it's going to perform really well at 2 billion market cap. This could even give you a push towards 10x. Casper, not the biggest fan, but again, it will probably pump. VeChain, Render, even Algorand, right? I know it's an old project, but they are doing a lot behind the scenes. Filecoin, I'm not really a fan of layer twos. I don't think layer twos, until Ethereum really, gets a move. You've still got time to, research in terms of layer twos. And then you've got some meme coins. Sai, I think, is another undervalued layer one. This is something which I think is really going to perform well. Again, slightly more higher risk than your other layer ones, but ultimately, this is something which Trump is accumulating in terms of World Liberty Financial. So for me, another overall very solid pick. And ultimately, guys, whatever you pick, make sure you do your research into it. And as I've said, just follow the main checklists. Are they active? Are they developing? Is there a docs team? Solid talk utility, good tokenomics, not too harsh of a vesting schedule, good exchange listings, a good volume, and ultimately, you just need to really make your decision. In terms of, key narratives, as I've said, I think, AI is going to make a huge comeback. Real world assets, I know we've seen a huge shake with Mantra, but, it gives an opportunity for more projects in that space. If you want to see the other projects, there's a massive amount of smaller cap projects within RWA, which can perform well. Gaming, another very undervalued sector. You can pretty much pick up some of these projects at pretty much the lows. And again, guys, that's when you're taking the least risk. When they're at the bottoms, when gaming comes as a rally, which it is, you are going to have a good opportunity to get some good prices. Deep in AI agents, layer ones, and ultimately you just need to, diversify and, pick a few from different narratives. And then also made in America potentially could see, tax benefits for some of these projects. So yeah, guys, ultimately what I want to say is just do not panic. I know it's really difficult, and, I can fully relate, guys. As an investor, I am very heavy in crypto, and you have to live with it, guys, right? This market will humble you. Really, it will humble you. And but as I've said, just how it can move down, it can also move in the reverse. in insane rallies. We've seen some of the low caps, how they can move in the space of literally a few hours, the space of a few days. So just hold in there, guys. We will see a reversal, we will see rate cuts, and ultimately I think going into towards Q3, Q4 2025, we are going to see some good opportunities in the market. So yeah, guys, just jumping on quickly. I know a lot of people are struggling with this market, and I really just want to get it home to you to just be patient, DCA small amounts along the way. And as I've said, just follow that checklist in terms of a project. It doesn't matter what project, guys, as long as you follow the checklist in terms of what I've said. You can have a look at what I've said in terms of key points. And yeah, guys, just a quick video. Hope you enjoyed this. And again, don't forget to subscribe and drop a like so you don't miss any content. And also, guys, don't forget to drop a follow on X as well. I don't really post too much, but I am starting to increase my posts on X as well. So don't forget to drop a follow as well. Anyway, guys, hope you're keeping well. Don't panic too much. I know it's hard to look at your portfolio, specifically when you've got Bitcoin dominance at such huge levels, and you've got the likes of gold pretty much at all-time highs. Eventually, we're going to see a reversal in these riskier assets, and you're going to wish you didn't get shaken out. So anyway, guys, I'll see you soon for the next video.